everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all doing fine. Today, the topic I have chosen to discuss is deconstruction. So, if you have not checked my previous video on structuralism, I will give the link in the description box below. So, without further ado, let us begin. Deconstruction as an idea was developed by the French philosopher and critic Jacques Derrida, and this idea was developed in his book of grammatology, which was published in 1967. Now, if you ask what is deconstruction, only there is one answer that deconstruction cannot be defined. Through this theory, Derrida actually critiqued the obsession of theory with definition. Deconstruction does not mean destruction. It can mean breaking down or dismantling the conventional text and then bringing it back together. It involves the contradiction of meaning. It also involves that there is no final singular meaning. Rather, there are many meanings within the text. And who produces the meaning? The reader. And the subjectivity and the ideology of the reader influences the meaning making. Thus, we can say deconstruction challenges the belief that there is only one final meaning, and it also opposes the obsession of a central theme or central idea. Derrida pays attention to the nature of language, and also he throws light on the constructed nature of language, identity, and ideologies. Before going into a detailed discussion of deconstruction, I think I should talk a bit about structuralism. Structuralism is obsessed with the structure behind everything. Structuralism operates in the binary. According to structuralism, meaning is made because of the binary. And structuralism is understood to have two levels: the visible surface phenomena and the invisible structural phenomena. And structuralism believes that language is a system of signs. And in this system, meaning is produced by binary or opposition of thinking. So, one term is always privileged over the other. That means the signifier, the word, always remains of lesser importance. So, Derrida challenges this notion that meaning is just there, ready to be found. He does not believe that meaning is an essence. He does not believe that there is only one unified singular meaning in any text. In the text, there are contradiction of many meanings. According to Derrida, the author's meaning can be betrayed by a close reading of the reader, and the relationship between the signifier and the signified is not a stable one. And meaning changes from culture to culture, context to context, person to person, tradition to tradition. If we read Shakespeare in our context, the meaning will definitely be different than those people who read Shakespeare, say, in the 15th century. Let me make this clear with some examples. Let us consider one sentence: time flies like an arrow. If we think that time is a verb and flies is a noun, then the meaning can be produced that we have to record how fast the flies fly, like an arrow. If we use time flies as a noun and like as a verb, then another meaning is produced, that time flies is a kind of flies and they like an arrow. Like if you visit their house, you will find many kinds of arrows. That means every word carries other meanings within it. Derrida here gives the notion of stress. That means every word carries the history of the usage of that particular word. That means alternative meaning can be produced by the historical meanings. The changes of tone and stress can give a different meaning altogether. Let us consider another sentence. The Prime Minister says the soldiers do not have to go to the China border. If we read this sentence putting stress on Prime Minister, it will be like the Prime Minister says the soldiers do not have to go to the China border. That means the Prime Minister said, not another person. If we put stress on says, that means the Prime Minister says that the soldiers do not have to go to the China border. The emphasis is on says means the Prime Minister says, but he might not mean that. If we read with the emphasis on the soldiers, the Prime Minister says the soldiers do not have to go to the China border. That means the soldiers do not have to go to, but maybe the doctors or maybe the teachers have to go to the China border. If the emphasis is on have to, that means the Prime Minister says the soldiers do not have to go to the China border. That means the soldiers can go to the China border if they choose. They do not have to, there is no compulsion. And if we put the stress on China border, then the Prime Minister says the soldiers do not have to go to the China border. That means maybe the border of Bangladesh. So we can see that the meaning can change according to the tone and the stress the speaker puts on different words. Thus, we come to the point that language is very slippery and ambiguous. In language, the concept of difference is very important. Say, for example, the word bat. If a person uses the word bat, he can mean anything, a cricket bat, or the bat the creature, or Batman. Meaning is determined by the person and by the situation. Another point to be noted is that reader plays a very important role in making meaning. If I read one text here, I bring all my understanding, my subjectivity, my social belief into that reading. And that reading might not be the same reading of perhaps a person from England or perhaps a person from Korea, because their subjectivity, their thinking, their social beliefs are different, and those beliefs actually play a vital role in making the meaning. That means there can never be a final and authentic meaning in any text. Another kind of meaning is connotative meaning. If I give another example of one more sentence, Rita is a total cat. The word cat can have multiple meaning. That means Rita has an attitude of a cat, like she loves to be pampered very much. Or maybe she has that sneaky attitude of a cat. It can mean many things. It goes on and on. So when we use one word, all the meaning the word has acquired over the time hang on to that word. The traces of previous meanings. That means the final meaning is always suspended. One signifier may refer to some other signifiers, and they may refer to some other signifiers, and then this process can go on and on. And language can become the play of multiple signifiers. So the final meaning is always suspended and deferred, and this final meaning is a myth. Does that mean that there is no meaning? No, there is meaning. Rather, there are meanings, and meanings are produced by the reader as a vehicle through the infinite play of signifiers. Language is like a web of meaning. So, if we look from the point of view that everything is language, whatever we feel, whatever our identities are, our opinions, viewpoints are, everything is constructed by language. If someone asks you, "Who are you?" you have to communicate through language. Our understanding of our own self is dependent on language. Since we have already discussed so far that language is not stable, and if I understand myself through language, can I come to the stable understanding of my own self through this unstable language? That is a very important question to ask. We think within the language. It is the very basis of our understanding. So, we as a concept are unstable play of meaning. Another point here to note is that our identity is a myth. We are like literary texts. We understand ourselves in terms of language and we communicate ourselves through language. That means our identity is not a stable one. The notion of a stable identity is created by the culture as a comforting delusion, and the rigid identities created by the culture are imposed upon us. The idea of truth is thus one of the privileged transcendental idea and that cannot be questioned. Deconstruction gives us, or rather equips us, with the ability to question our own identities, these transcendental beliefs, and it can help us see that our own beliefs, desires, fears, everything is conflicting. Human beings are like fragmented battlefields, but the culture denies us the fragmented experience associated by the fragmented nature of the language. Thus, the refusal to accept the imposed identity is one of the trademarks of post structuralist theory. The identity is a process of becoming and not a being. Another point to note here that deconstruction refutes logocentrism. In Western society, the spoken word is privileged over the written word because the spoken word is associated with the presence of the speaker. And the written word stands for the impersonal lifelessness. The written word thus threatens because it can be interpreted in multiple ways by different stress, tone, connotation, and by the different meanings associated with different words. That is why written words are threatening. And it is the reason that in Western society, spoken words are privileged. Western philosophy is centered on the logos. What is this logos? The presence, the transcendental signifies the words. The transcendental signifiers stand for meaning that surpasses everything. Logocentrism attempts to understand the world through the concepts of these transcendental beliefs. Thus, these concepts are beyond challenging. Reason is given extreme importance in the Western society. And these concepts maybe existed even before all the other discourses. Now, deconstruction rejects all these transcendental concepts and they challenges and refutes the logocentrism. Deconstruction believes that no concept is outside the fluidity and ambiguity of language. No concept is thus beyond questioning. Meanings like family, democracy, humanity, all these are transcendental beliefs. They are together called the first principles. Deconstruction believes that these first principles can be challenged. For example, there is an idea that family cannot be objected, and the one who doesn't follow this idea is always referred to as an outsider. Deconstruction challenges these kind of beliefs. Deconstruction thus equips us to see this logocentrism inherent in our society, in our social beliefs, and in that way, deconstruction teaches us to question them. Another point to note that deconstruction challenges this binary opposition. From structural point of view, every text is made up of binary opposition. Good versus evil, black and white, man and woman. Deconstruction teaches us to find these overlapping elements. Deconstruction teaches us that the boundaries between the binaries are not clear. Rather, they are dependent on one another. The boundaries are always shifting. For example, a woman is an opposite of man. A woman is a defective man. Man needs to show his manliness by proving that he is not a woman. The existence of man is thus dependent on the action of excluding the woman. So, what is alien to a man, the woman, is also an intimate part of the man. Deconstruction helps us to see how the binaries are overlapping and then they are always shifting. The next point to note that deconstruction helps us to see the ideological nature of language. Language is purely ideological. Language consists of dynamic, conflicting, shifting ideologies. How anything is understood that depends upon our own ideology. Thus, signs are authoritarian and ideological. And the function of ideology is to naturalize things, everything. Ideology seems to convert the cultural terms into natural terms. This is like that because it is so naturally. Ideology makes us believe in that manner. And how does it do? It does it through language. Through ideological beliefs, there are some ideas that cannot be questioned, but they can be questioned, and in realities, these ideas are just ideologies. Another point to note is that deconstruction and literature they enrich one another. We have discussed so far that meaning is not stable. Meaning is produced by the reader, and meaning is produced through the language play. Thus, no interpretation is the final interpretation. In deconstructive reading of a literary text, we have to really pay attention to the silent, neglected portions of the text. For example, through the deconstructive reading of Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, we can pay attention to Bertha Mason more. She, the woman who is shut in the attic and who is completely silenced throughout the text. Now, every reading is subjective. Author's subjectivity, the reader's subjectivity, the critic's subjectivity can be different. And the author, readers, critics are not outside the society. They bring into their own reading the social beliefs, their ideologies, their tradition, their culture. What we are inferring from a text can also be dependent on our personalities, culture, social background, etc. So, what are the results of deconstruction? The texts have multiple meaning. There is no final meaning. Meaning is produced by the reader, by the interpreter, and each meaning is separate from one another, and the readers, the interpreters, ideas, social background, and all the things matter in their making meaning. There are internal contradictions within the meaning. Human experience, political phenomena, everything can be constructed. Our own identity can be constructed, and we become aware of our own position, and we become equipped to understand our position and to question the transcendental beliefs. I hope that this brief discussion of deconstruction will help you to understand this concept. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.